New, in contrast to the left-green liberal government in Germany, who's building coal power plants, paradoxically, the UK outlines plans for the biggest expansion of nuclear power for 70 years to reduce electricity bills, create jobs, and improve energy security. Can I get some GB flags in chat, please? Because this is actually a good thing. And I have heard successive governments talking about doing this for a while. Boris was about doing it, and I do think he intended to. I do think that this was the plan, and maybe he did do a lot of work towards it. But making this official, publicly announcing it, and hopefully actually doing it, this is the right way to go. In terms of the methods of generating power, this is the right way to go. At this point, it's not even really dangerous anymore. All the nuclear incidents in the past can be traced back to incompetence in one way or the other. Fukushima is the best argument, really, but there was still problems with that. The reason it went so wrong is because I believe so anyway, I did hear this, that the diesel generator that powered the plant as a backup was under the water level. And they were hit with a massive earthquake at the same time as they were hit with a tsunami. So kind of worst case scenario there. But then, you think about Chernobyl, that was terrible. Yeah, it proves that Slavs can't boil water, especially when they're socialist. So it was massive incompetence and corruption and hiding the issue. And even in our current societies, it's hard to believe that it could get that bad. And with the technology having improved so much, it's a lot easier to keep it safe. And the 3 Mile Island disaster, I think it was called, it was very early days. And even that was not a big disaster. It, I think, killed 1 or 2 people who were there in the building being incompetent. So yeah, it's very, very hard to argue against them. They are, for all intents and purposes, clean in that it's very easy to dispose of the waste. And these days it's actually not only easy to dispose of it, you can do it safely and relatively inexpensively for what it's worth. And even then, that carbon-14 can be used to make batteries. I know, right? And probably there isn't as much demand as there would be supply, but you can use carbon-14, which is a common side product. And there's other things you can do with nuclear waste as well. But carbon-14, you can make it into beta voltaic cells, which last 30,000 years. I think that's so fucking cool. Granted, the voltage is tiny, but if you need a tiny voltage that will last for 30,000 years, you got it. Nuclear waste. Just cut up a bit of nuclear waste and put it in a beta voltaic crystal, and then put a bunch of them in an array, and you've got a battery that will last for 30,000 years. It's so cool. But yes, anyway, the technology on nuclear fission has advanced a lot in the last 30, 40 years, and I think a lot of people are realizing now that it is a good idea. Now, that said, I am very cautious about China's involvement, because if they have any more than a trivial involvement in our nuclear power plants, then I don't trust that they will be safe, and they may even be sabotageable. Now, I don't think even our own people would be dumb enough to just permit open sabotage like that. But, by indirection, by partial, it could be that China has more control over that than they should. But either way, this is good news. New CMOS batteries. Maybe, I'm not sure, like the voltage on beta voltaics, as I understand, is very low. But maybe it's enough for a CMOS battery, yeah. I mean, CMOS batteries, little penny batteries, they last a very long time anyway. But still, 30,000 years is nice to have. I love the idea of developing beta voltaics or something similar, such that your phone can be run by beta voltaics. Now, I know it's unlikely because the voltage difference and whatnot, but imagine your phone having 30,000 years of battery life. Like, from the time you buy it, 30,000 years, don't worry about replacing the battery anymore. It's fine. All you've got to have is like a tiny little bit of carbon-14 in there. Carbon, is it 14 or 12? Either way. Now, that's somewhat unlikely, but I think there's probably potential to that technology, and I would like to see it pursued. Because as much as there's always new battery technologies developing all the time, which will replace lithium-ion as a safer and more power-efficient battery, and many of them are already coming to market, the idea of using nuclear waste to create a battery which just converts matter directly to energy by its own natural decay, and that will last thousands of years is great. But even then, what if you could sacrifice the 30,000 years and turn it down to, say, 20 and get more voltage out of it? there must be a way to make that trade-off. And I don't know. I'm no physicist. I take an interest in a sort of like amateur sense. But I would love to hear someone who knows more explain some of this. Voodoo says, from what I understand, the only waste we can't reuse is from the PPE used. That's interesting. Experimental generator that uses salt water mixed with nuclear waste radiation to generate electricity. Would be good for creating hydrogen via electrolysis. Cool. I understand some of that, but that does sound cool. There's all kinds of new technology that's around nuclear fission generation. Correct says, I like the idea of there eventually being ancient relic batteries for our very, very, very distant descendants to worship and build their societies around. That would be cool. Imagine building a battery today, which people in 2,000 years will still be using. Wouldn't that be like, that's such a cool sci-fi concept. Those beta, I don't care how impractical those beta voltaics are for like day-to-day tasks. The concept is so cool that I really hope we do something interesting with them. Duck says carbon-12 is standard carbon. Carbon-14 is the mildly radioactive isotope that's used to date organic samples. Yeah, I think you're correct. And it's mildly radioactive, I believe, of specifically beta radiation particles, which I think is like free electrons, I think. And that's what can activate beta voltaics. Exactly the same as photovoltaics, which is what solar panels are. It converts light into electricity. By the way, fun fact, solar panels are dramatically more efficient than photosynthesis, in case you didn't know. Photosynthesis is like 3%, and solar panels like 40 to 50%. It's very impressive. So don't knock them too hard, chat. Even though they're being artificially pushed too hard, they're not. They're pretty good. But yeah, beta voltaics. It's a cool thing. The idea that you can just convert beta radiation into electricity. It's really cool. Fucking freeloaders, build your own damn batteries. That's good, Doctor. Classic boomer take there. AC says, I guarantee that if you make that battery 20,000 instead of 30,000, it's in exchange for more radiation, which is not a good idea to keep on your person for very obvious reasons. True, but if they're designed in such a way that the radiation stream is still small enough that it will literally never escape, then that's fine. I'm not sure if that's true, but I think carbon-14 in the like minute quantities that exist in those batteries is so small that you wouldn't have any problem with it. Like if you ingested it, maybe you would, but that's about it. And it's the way that I saw it being done. It's embedded in a fucking like industrial diamond. So someone would have to be really going some to get at the carbon-14. They'd have to be trying to irradiate themselves to get at the carbon-14. So I think it's viable, but obviously the idea of putting radioactive material around normal people is a concern, but smoke alarms have radioactive material in them. I can't remember which, is it americium or something? It's just, I think it's alpha radiation in that case, which is different. Not necessarily less dangerous, actually, but it just fires alpha radiation at a detector, and if there's smoke in the way, then it blocks it. However, I believe that modern ones are optical instead. That may be wrong. Like I think it varies. They may have both types of detectors, but for years they've been alpha emitters. Alpha can be blocked by paper, yes, because alpha particles is like free protons, or is it neutrons? Either way, one of the bigger particles, whereas electrons are a lot smaller. So electrons can pass through more things. Gamma's the really bad one. Although I guess saying that, it probably does vary, but gamma is actually waves, I think. Anyway, Kieran says, hydrogen is a great clean fuel source and abundant using high voltage electricity. You can split the oxygen and hydrogen atoms in water electrolysis and have an infinite fuel hack, since the only waste from hydrogen fuel says it's water vapor. Also get some from oil rigs while drilling if you need a transfer period. It sounds cool, but hydrogen fuel cells have been talked about for years, and I'm not sure why they have never been implemented, but I feel like there must be something I'm missing there. Big oil killed nuclear, that's right. Well, nuclear isn't really hydrogen fuel cells, it's a different thing. Energy loops do not exist and yet are just a misunderstanding of at least. Yeah, obviously AC, but I think the point that he's making is that water is so abundant that you can essentially consider it to be unlimited. Not technically unlimited, but practically unlimited. And so if you can generate electricity using just water, i.e. by splitting the molecules, you can almost consider that to be infinite energy. And that's why I suspect, like, that sounds too easy. I bet there's something I'm missing there, but I haven't looked into it. For more experimental yet promising Tech, a company called Helion, I think I've heard of them, has a cool hydrogen fusion reactor that skips most energy generation steps by drawing power from the magnetic field fluctuating. I think I saw that, and I saw, was it Veritasium or Real Engineering or something, covered that and said, that's cool. And I thought, yeah, that looks kind of cool. But then I saw a debunk video and it was like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't fucking work. So it might not work. I'm not sure about that. Be skeptical about these things. But a cool ideas anyway. Kieran says hydrogen is held back by oil companies as they have fingers in the rare earth extraction that batteries use in electric cars. Hydrogen is harder to monopolize. I would be surprised if that was enough on its own to do this. But maybe. Like, that, I could see that genuinely preventing it from happening for like 10, 20 years. But it's probably been closer to 40, 50 by now. Hey, maybe we're just around the corner. Maybe you're right, and maybe hydrogen fuel cells are that good, and maybe now that we have 3D printing and we have more information available to people, maybe we'll start seeing individuals making hydrogen fuel cells that actually work in the near future. Any hydroelectric dam is easily modified to do electrolysis as a side gig. Interesting. Again, like, I'm surprised that it hasn't happened. Even in some situation like that, where it's difficult to argue that that's competing with oil. Because, like, if you've got the opportunity to build a hydroelectric dam somewhere, it's pretty much always a good idea to do it because it's such a it's a very clean and efficient form of energy generation. Karak says most obvious solutions of practically unlimited resources like that are limited by the process involved in utilizing them. At least that logic applies to why droughts can be a problem despite water covering the world. Yeah, that's true. If hydrogen fuel cells require pure water, I could see that being a limiting factor. But surely it's easier to build more desalination plants than it is to build oil fields. I would guess so. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Let's go on to the next story, but I am happy about this. It's just an announcement and it's on some fucking Twitter account, but if this is the path that my country is taking, I'm very happy about that.